Now, the other one, this is not just something that goes on in K-beauty, but it does happen, is making deceptive and unfair marketing claims. Now, these are either claims that are false, just straight up not true, or claims that can't be substantiated. And like I mentioned, it's not unique to K-beauty. It does happen across the global beauty industry. The issue is, and why it is a big problem for Korean beauty in particular, is because if you think about who is regulating these companies, on the Korean side, it's Korean regulators. So if a K-beauty brand does something that violates the law in Korea, they're going to be pulled up by the Korean regulators. But how is that being reported? It's going to be reported in Korean. And depending on who the brand is, that news and the fact that they have been reprimanded by the authorities or forced to pay a fine or something, it just doesn't ever get reported on in English. Particularly some of the brands that are doing it, they're more popular overseas than they are in Korea. So if a Korean was scanning through that news and they saw it, they'd be like, who's that brand? Or whatever, that's a tiny brand, I don't care about them, or I've never heard about the products. But if a global audience knew about it, they'd be like, whoa, I can't believe X brand got in trouble for doing this. And, you know, the reason that I'm not sharing any brand names in particular is because I don't want to get sued. So that's the other issue, is that the defamation laws in Korea being what they are, it makes it really, really hard to share a lot of this stuff. But there are some globally popular K-beauty brands that have actually done the wrong thing and not got away with it. There was obviously the sunscreen scandal that happened a few years ago. There were some brands that got caught that barely made the news, even though they were popular amongst foreigners. I think the main one that sort of got caught up in that scandal was Purito, but there were a whole lot more brands than Purito, and a lot of them barely got any coverage, any airtime, you know, for their part in that scandal. There's another K-beauty brand that is huge on TikTok right now that was pulled up by the regulators a few years ago for their ginseng serum and making claims that you're not allowed to make about cultivated ginseng, which was what they had in their product. They were basically making the kind of claims that you can only make about a product that is using wild ginseng, which has very different components in it from the cultivated ginseng. So this is a problem just generally, brands just, you know, going further than they're allowed to go, making claims that they're not allowed to make. But the K-beauty example does get a little bit more complicated just because the reporting that is happening is in Korean and it doesn't always make its way into the English news. So I thought that I would mention that as one of the marketing practices that is problematic.